Welcome to the I Am Different series. If you've been around our program long enough, you notice that there's something different. I Am Third is not the world's way of doing things. In fact, as college basketball moves towards a me first narrative, we are doubling down on I Am Third. We want to take you behind the scenes and show you some of our former players who are doing big things in our world through I Am Third in the game of basketball. It's God first, others second, yourself third. The unique and cool thing about it is if you have that perspective, it comes back around to benefit you.
Let's have it for the national champ! For the national champ! For the national champ! Unbelievable!
IWUHoops presents The Pursuit. Go inside the locker room as IWUHoops trades the pursuit of me for the pursuit of three.
This podcast is supported by Momentum Labs. As a college basketball coach, I know that having the right mindset is the key for players to reach their full potential. That's why I'm excited about our partnership with Momentum Labs, a group of mental performance coaches that have worked with athletes at the highest level of sport. For more information, go to momentumlabs.coach and check them out.
Welcome to another episode of the Pursuit Podcast. And before we get to our alumni guests, we're joined by two National Coach of the Years, Coach Tonagel and Coach Drew. Coach Tonagel, why don't you start by introducing our guests today and your relationship, and we'll go from there talking about being different in college basketball.
Yeah, it's an honor today to have on one of my former coaches, Coach Scott Drew. Coach Drew recruited me out of high school. Now, the listeners should know this is before he was recruiting McDonald's All-Americans. Actually, I think he recruited me to be a manager, and I talked my way on to the Valpo team at that time. But had an opportunity to play for him as his first head job at Valparaiso University. It was a one-year stint before he took the Baylor job and headed back. And then I played many years for his father, the legendary Coach Homer Drew. So we go way back. But, Coach, I want to kick it off with this. College basketball is changing. The landscape is different. But what about your program is different? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, well, the great thing in life is you learn and you hopefully get wiser each and every day. And our program's really been able to grow because Coach Tonagel's had a big influence since he's been there. And you remember the videos came out, I am second, and Dabo came out with the culture of joy, and Greg had talked to us about I am third, and we basically had a culture of joy, but we gave it a term, a definition, and really brought it to life after Greg shared with us just what they do in their program. And between I am third, culture of joy, and being fearless, I think that has been as big a influence in our program as anything else. And can't thank Greg enough. Actually, it goes back to my first year as a head coach. He probably saved our season. He was coming off some injuries, so he had the best of both worlds. He was kind of like a player coach. He didn't really have to practice, but he did win his games, and he was like an extension on the floor. And my first gig as a head coach, he calmed me down, fixed all my mistakes out on the court, and made us look really good. But I did learn two other things, and I know the listeners don't want to hear this, but I did go hunting with him, and he put me in an area, and he says, there's a fence right here, fence line, the deer run along it. Unfortunately, he had me on the wrong side of the fence line. The deer were always on the other side, and I had to sit there and stare at him and couldn't shoot him. All right, that was the first thing. Then the second thing is I went fishing with him once, and he ended up catching a trophy walleye. So I thought I'd get him back, brought him down to Texas, had him in a bass fishing tournament, and he won that. So I don't fish with him anymore, but I do listen to him, and he's had a huge impact. And our culture, joy, Jesus, others, yourself. At the end of the day, if you're selfless, everybody wants to play with you, and those are the best teams.
Coach, I went hunting with Coach Tonagel one time, and we went into the woods, and I went about 10 yards in the woods, and he put a bucket on the ground, and I was just sitting on a bucket looking at the back of this house for like 4 hours. Then he came back and said, it's time to go. And I was like, well, I'm never going hunting with you again. Hey, Coach, I want to push in a little bit because I think sometimes people hear I am third and fearless. And they don't attach it to the success of the program. They say, well, you're Indiana Wesleyan, of course you can talk about those things, but could you drill down a little bit deeper on those two things? How do they practically play out in your program in a way that's mattered and led to a difference in terms of how the team's playing on the court?
Yeah, so in basketball and in sports, the teams that can put their teammates first, those are the teams that are most successful, and you really can't do that without God's help. And we're all sinners, and we're all selfish, and God makes that possible for us to do that. We all want to play with teammates that put others in front of themselves, but we don't want to be like that, you know. We want the points, we want the minutes, we want the plays, we want the recognition. So just keeping those priorities, and it's like a meal. If you have a good breakfast, come dinner time, you're hungry. The next day, if you have a good dinner, you're still hungry. So you got to spiritually be fed, just like you have to with nutrition each and every day.
Coach, we talk quite a bit, and I've watched you journey. I'm in my 20th year, and I know you've been there longer than that. And in some ways, I've seen you start to set up other people. You're raising up leaders, and it seems to be a passion of yours. Why does college basketball need more I Am Third leaders right now in its current history?
Well, the great thing about college coaches, that Billy Graham said it, a coach has a chance to impact more people in one season than a normal person does over a lifetime. So you have just so many people and such a great platform. You can tell you've been really successful at winning and influencing and impacting people because you're not gray and you're not bald. So you're doing a great job, Greg. Unfortunately, I got both of them happening. But I can tell you as a head coach, I want to surround myself, just like the Bible says, iron sharpens iron. And you don't go to war without the advice of others. And our staff is what's made us successful. And then obviously bringing in the right players that you can pour into. But the older you get, you know your time is fleeting. And we've been so blessed to have so many great staff members that have gone on to other places. And God sometimes allows you to see their spiritual journey complete while they're here, and other times it's years later. But there's nothing better than to hear the program had an impact on my life, my kids' life, my family's life, and that's the biggest win. And we all know it's the only win that really matters.
Well said. Coach, got one more question for you. We're going to be hearing later in this episode from two of our former players, Josh Mawhorr and Nolan. They're with you on your staff now. So you have one day and you have Coach Tonagel, Josh, and Nolan, and you can take them fishing anywhere. Where are you going?
Well, I'm definitely not going up north because Tonagel would have the advantage with walleye, with muskie, with pike. But I tell you what, we would probably go trophy bass fishing either in South Texas or Mexico. And I can tell you that he's done a great job, and your program's done a great job because Nolan and Josh are tremendous on the court, but more importantly, the spiritual impact they have on the people they encounter each and every day in our program has been a blessing. So thank you for blessing them. You might need to help them on picking football games because they haven't been as successful. But they're a true blessing to have.
Well, Coach, let's do this. If you win your second national championship this year, we're going to Mexico to celebrate with a little bass fishing. How's that?
And El Salto, I love that.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Hey, you guys have a great day.
Thank you.
And now we're joined by Big Daddy Josh Mawhorr and Nolan Mader, who we were just talking to Coach Drew about. And guys, we've been talking to him and in this series about being different. What does it mean to be different right now in college basketball? So I want both of you to start with going back to your experience at Indiana Wesleyan. Josh, a little longer ago, Mader just graduating last year. What was different about the culture at Indiana Wesleyan when you were playing here?
Yeah, it's a easy question to answer, not just because my experience was so transformational, but we were just kind of talking about it. We had a Bible study this morning, and I think the thing that I was reminded of is at Indiana Wesleyan, I learned like the lane I operated in wasn't my identity, and I was able to separate those two, and you kind of hear that a lot, but it really is impactful when you realize, like, hey, basketball is not my identity. It's just something I do. But my identity is something that can never be taken away from me because it's not attached to basketball. So I think for me, that was just revolutionary, and it led me to play a lot differently with a lot more freedom, a lot more joy, versus kind of the fear-based mentality of if I don't perform or what's coach going to think, and all the things that players can battle. So for me, that just kind of set me free in a lot of ways. So
I think for me, it was just how the program and just you guys discipled young men like me and many different players. Just being at IWU, I knew that it was bigger than basketball. It wasn't just me, and how can I get rewarded through the game of basketball, and how can I play, and how can I get success. It was just through the discipleship of us players and the way that you guys use your platform as coaches, and the program, just the program as a whole, discipled young men like me and influenced players just for Christ. It's the biggest thing.
So now that you guys are into a journey at the highest levels of college basketball, both you as GAs at Baylor, what are you seeing in that world, and why as you look at that, do you think it's so important for programs to be built different in this time?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll tell you this, like, I have compassion for our guys currently because the nature of college basketball, especially at this level, is so different, and it's so easy to be me, and what am I getting out of this? Transfer portal, where a lot of things seems transactional. And so I think for me, like, just having the experience I had at IWU, I'm like, man, there's a little more urgency for me to develop relationships with guys so I can have conversations and encourage them of like, hey, man, you put a lot of time and energy and effort in this, but hey, it's pretty amazing. This doesn't define you. So I think just getting the taste of college basketball at this level, I feel like in my own heart there's urgency to help guys have just a little sliver of what I got on a much smaller level, just with the things that they're having to face and navigate, and I just feel urgency to help share that with them.
I think personally it's just because that's what Jesus calls us to, and in the end, you're not going to play basketball. You play basketball, even if you're a pro, for 10, 20 years, but it's going to end at one point, and ultimately you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, like, what is life truly about? What is my purpose? And for me, I know I talked to Luke Stevens a little bit about it, but just like, I felt like I had every experience, through college and my time at IWU, whether it was starting games, whether it was sitting the bench, wanting to transfer, loving it, being hurt, being sick, like so many different experiences. And I think that can propel me into this season of life with the guys here, whether it's, going through different struggles at a heightened experience. But how can I just be that coach, be that person that they can rely on and I can encourage and pray for and all those things. So there's an urgency, like Josh said, to be different, and through just this basketball world, just truly be a reflection of Jesus and how we can just play the game different, but also just minister to others.
Well said. So I want to ask you guys a question, because you obviously have a different perspective now, having completed your playing career, now you're coaching. And I have to say this about coaching, that you shouldn't be allowed to coach until you have kids, because you just look at everybody differently. But you also shouldn't be allowed to play college basketball until you've coached. I've heard this so many times when guys get to the other side, they're like, man, if I could go back, this would be different. So if you could go back to your playing days, Josh, 2016, Mater, last year, now that you've coached, you've seen it, what would be different?
Man, that's a good question. That's a really good question. If you got something, fire away.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
While you guys are thinking, here's what I always say, like, I'd have had more fun. I walked into a lot of practices like thinking I was being evaluated on every breath I took and move I made. But man, what I want on my players is just to have fun, to be fearless. And, now looking back on it, I realize coaches, at least our staff, we're not going in there critiquing and trying to take the fun out of the game. We're trying to remove fear so that guys can play in complete freedom. And so that's one thing I take away. I'd just be curious, maybe what would be a takeaway you guys would have?
Yeah, I to kind of piggyback off that, I think there was this, I was a guy that wanted to do, I was never the most athletic, so I prided myself in how hard I worked, and I had to find other ways to be effective. And I think you just don't, you forget that like coaches have so many things on their plates that something that's huge in your mind is like they forgot about it 5 seconds afterwards. So, I mean, it hits right on what you were saying of, when you're in the shoes of an athlete, and that is a lot of what you do, it's so easy to magnify everything and lose sight of perspective for the day, but more importantly, an eternal perspective, I think, calms your fears and anxieties when you realize your deepest needs are taken care of, and one day, whatever life throws at you, it can't separate you from your identity in Christ. And so I think I wish I could have took a master's class in that. Just zoom out, man, relax, enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I think one of my strengths, but also my weakness, could be how I think about things. So like, I have deep convictions, but I also am an overthinker. And like, I left many practices thinking like, oh, what did Coach Clark think about this? What did Coach T think about this? Like, I made this mistake. And I just had this negative mindset oftentimes because I just wanted to be a perfectionist. But I think just taking a step back and seeing it through the lens of just a coach now, I would have just, like you said, had so much more joy and freedom just to push my teammates and not overthink decisions and just trust my abilities in that way and truly live the I Am Third lifestyle. And then I think my first couple years, I regret just a little bit just having a negative mindset about my position. And I think I would have used that platform of not playing to just learn more and trust you guys, trust the coaches, and truly just from the position of kind of being on the bench and on the scout squad, just have more of a positive mindset and stir my teammates on to better, because I know how much that mattered in the years to come, for sure.
Probably would have thrown a few too. I probably would have thrown maybe 3 or 4 less elbows to Aaron Murray and Lane Mawhorr, and having to break up a few scuffles, save you guys some stress.
I love both your insight, but Josh, you were talking about the nature of transactional coaching and how it seems so evident everywhere you look at basketball now. What, as you look back and think about playing here and the experiences and learning about I Am Third, how's that carrying forward into the way you coach right now in this role you have? What are you doing that's different than many people are in college basketball that make it less about transaction and more about really leading to transformation?
Yeah, it's great. I think just it doesn't just happen, right? You have to kind of have a plan of action, and you have to know your players to figure out like, hey, what's this guy? What's going to land with him? And so, that can look at a lot of different ways. For me, I love getting one-on-one time with guys over lunch, or, we had a scrimmage a few weeks ago, and I know the guy didn't play well. It's like, hey, I'm sending an intentional text message like, hey, I know you had a tough couple possessions that didn't go your way. Hang in there. And I think praying for guys. I think the more I pray for my players, I'm not trying to sound cliche or corny, but I'm more in tune and alert with what is going on in their life and picking up on how they react to things. And so, I think it's great to have good corporate times as a team, but I think as a coach to develop a personal relationship, you have to do that. How do I show that individually? And took notes from you guys and stole things of just, hey, I'm in the office early. You want to come and just hang and talk, and just open door policy, being available. Nothing revolutionary, but things that, as I'm consistent in those things, I've seen fruit and equity built with my players.
Yeah, I think for me, it would just be, especially in the beginning, starting out here, in the roles that we're in, just gaining trust. Not only trust with the coaches, but trust with like the other coaches, but trust with the players and on the court, and just I actually took a slower morning yesterday and talked to Muth called me, and then I talked to Suf a little bit and Chili all in the same morning, just trying to slow down and just, continue to touch up back with guys at IWU and stuff. And they all, Suf said it perfectly. He's like, I just try to be available for the guys and ask questions. And that really stuck with me. How can I look for moments while I'm walking with God as a coach here? How can I ask questions to the guys and just invest in their lives and show that I actually truly care about them and want to make them better? Because my success as a coach now is just the potential and how I'm making other people better and making the players better. And then like Josh said, just praying, centering, and you guys did that in an amazing way, centering everything on prayer. I know Suf and Mathia and Dio would always tell me everything you guys do would be based on prayer. And in my new marriage, as well as just here, whether it's with Josh or just in my own life, how can I pray for the guys and center everything on prayer and then see and locate God moving? And Coach Clark, we actually have used your praying on offense a little bit. Just the 2 questions, 1 space, 3 people. And that's helped me just be intentional with my prayer and not get distracted, because there's so many things going on in the coaching world, but just slowing down and being how can I pray for a couple people right now and just locate God in the midst of that. And I think that's good for not only coaching, but anything in life,
One thing that I'm thinking of is, man, I wish when I was in year 1 of my coaching journey, I could have spoken about half the stuff you're speaking about right now. It's pretty amazing to hear. Last question for you guys, though. So let's just say you run into one of your players, or someone, you're at playing an opposing Big 12 game this year, and someone hears you played it in Westland and say, hey, I've heard about that place. What makes it different? All we're talking about in this series is I am different. So if you had 2 sentences, 3 sentences to say what was different about Indiana Wesleyan basketball from your experience, how would you respond?
I would say I say they win differently. I was like, it's yes, there's a Christian culture, but I mean, we get dubs over there. We're about our business. But I would say how we go about that is what makes it different. There's a lot of winning programs out there, but I'm like, man, you just go spend 5 days around there and take notes. Come talk to me, and I'm like, you'll see that there's joy, there's accountability, there's time set aside to where you open God's word collectively, and then you not only just do that, but then you go, hey, how do we intentionally apply that? What's our plan of action? I think those are 3 things of just, that was the first time I'd seen that in the world of athletics. I was used to that kind of in the realm of the church and, ministry aspect, but to kind of see that, hey, God's word applies to all aspects of life, and you and Coach T did a great job of modeling of hey, well, let's not just say that, let's go do it together, and, you see the results of just transformed lives.
Yeah, I think I would just say it's bigger than basketball. How can you implement Christ just through the platform of basketball? That's what the I Am Third lifestyle is about. That's what IWU's about. And honestly, Coach Drew has done a great job here in just the culture of joy. So it's been pretty cool to go from the I Am Third lifestyle and then see it through this lens of the culture of joy, which is just Jesus, others, yourself. And IWU is just, they're different because it is bigger than basketball. And you guys, and IWU as people leave IWU, they are truly becoming or are men of God. And it's transformative. So,
I'll further that joy is Coach Drew, right? If you know Coach Drew, he embodies joy, he lives it, and that's so cool, to see that happen. And so, I'll just say this, man, we're proud of you guys. Really, hearing this was even better than I would have thought. We've always had reason to root for Baylor. We've got 2 more big reasons now, and we're excited for what you guys are going to do. Thank you for representing our program and taking I Am Third wherever God calls you.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellas.
Yep.
Thank you guys.
You guys.